If you were listening to the program last week, you may have heard my conversation with local plant pathologist Peter McGarry. We were discussing the likelihood of a downy mildew outbreak. It's a disease that can have a devastating impact on grapevines when warm, wet conditions are at play. So what kind of impact could yesterday's wet weather have? Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Now, last week we were talking downy mildew and the likelihood we could see an outbreak in local vineyards. Has yesterday's wet weather changed things a bit?
Not a lot, but it has indicated with the instrumentation that we've got that there's infection in Loxton, a primary infection predicted for Loxton, the regions around Marook, New Residence, Pyap and Qualco. And the other places, whilst they don't appear, they've been fairly wet, it appears like they might have had disease. At this point, are not showing that the disease has been triggered.
Right. And so how long until you know for certain that the disease has been triggered and that those growers in those areas can see it?
We're using a model that we've developed since the 1970s. We've been building a system called GrowCare and the Downy Mildew model, which has replaced the 10-10-24 system, which is outmoded. That's just a rule of thumb. And so we're using this electronic system, and the weather seems to be clearing. It's showing us that the leaf wetness is drying out, the humidity is deteriorating, the temperature is remaining fine. And so looking at these, it looks like probably the next 2 or 3 hours we'll know whether the other stations the other weather stations have had downy mildew conditions for primary infection or not.
I'm speaking with Peter McGarry, local plant pathologist. You just mentioned there the weather station. So the Bureau of Meteorology have put out a number of warnings relating to downy mildew. How do the current conditions suit?
Well, it's interesting, if I might just go backwards for a moment. The Bureau of Meteorology are using the outmoded system of 10-10-24 to give these alerts. And whilst that's a general alert, that's okay for what it is. There's much more precision now that can be done and provided for this. And Riverland Wine and Murray Valley Wine Industry Association in Mildura are working with me, and we're trying to build a system that is sending detailed messages. For argument's sake, grape growers this morning who have already registered for this, quote, free, unquote, service, have got messages to say, if you're in those areas I've mentioned, that there's a downy mildew primary infection, and that comes free to your phone if you register.
Okay, and how do people register?
They contact Charles Matheson from Riverland Wine.
Okay, and he'll put them on that register.
Yep.
All right. I'm speaking with Peter McGarry, local plant pathologist. And have you actually spoken to any growers and heard their concerns?
I've heard them spoken, but I haven't actually spoken to anybody myself. Just in the last couple of days, we've been head down, tail up, chasing the weather on the instrumentation we've got here. So, yes, I know that a number of people are very concerned about the carryover of disease. There's usually enough downy mildew in the soil anyway that the amount of disease last year doesn't really affect this year. It might change it a little bit, but the main issue is how much wetness and warmth during rainfalls for this year. That's going to control things. And at the moment, there are not very many weather stations where we're indicating has been downy mildew until today. So today is the one where there's 5 sites with it out of some 20 weather stations we've got in a network across the Riverland.
Okay. And so the Weather Bureau said the sun's out later today. Is that good news or bad news for downy mildew?
It's bad news for downy, so that's good news for us.
Okay.
So the drying out is what's in the next few hours. It's going to be significant in what's happening and what's not happening.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Peter, and we'll probably check in with you again in a few days and just see if you have spoken to growers and what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter McGarry there, local plant pathologist, talking about the downy mildew. If you did miss any of that conversation, you'd like to listen back, you can do so through the ABC Listen app.